Okay, my name is Deanna Mitchell, and I'm the superintendent for the Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad National Historical Park in Church Creek, Maryland. African American history is tied to the Chesapeake. Well, for me, what I would say in regards to that question is that you really can get a feel for what this Eastern Shore meant to the people who not only, were on these lands long before the British came, but even those individuals that look like me that came over on the boats from Africa and were sold into slavery. This was what they knew. This is all they knew. And so that rich history itself is something that we can't close our eyes to, that we need to make sure that we are sharing with generations to come, because that's really the basis of this Eastern Shore. A lot of what we see here on the shore with regards to agriculture, the landscapes, the timbering, all of those types of activities that took place many, many years ago here on the Eastern Shore were a product of those people who came from faraway lands. And again, not only that, but the Native Americans who were here long before anyone settled here. Many people, when they think of the Eastern Shore of Maryland, I'm going to be very honest with you. Many folks say, oh yeah, I know the Eastern Shore. I go through it on my way to Ocean City. Okay, yes, you do. But have you ever really stopped to really embrace what the Eastern Shore is? Once you come across that Chesapeake Bay Bridge and you make your way on 50 and you head south, that's when you are basically entering the Eastern Shore of Maryland. It is beautiful, first of all, as far as I'm concerned. Very rural, of course. There are families that generationally live here because of farming. So farms have been handed down from generation to generation to generation. Best produce in the world. There's so many farmers markets here. And while we have a lot of marshland and we do have an issue with regards to sea level rise, it really is a hidden jewel for me, not only just in the state of Maryland, but also throughout the nation. I mean, where else can you go and experience the number of tributaries and rivers that branch off from the Chesapeake and run through this area? So yes, this is where Harriet Tubman was born and raised. And this is where Frederick Douglass was born and raised. And that's those two individuals, just those two, because there are a number of other people who were reared in this portion of the state of Maryland. But just knowing that those two heroic individuals traveled and made their way through the Eastern Shore, accomplishing the things that they accomplished that we all should know about. That's pretty big. That's pretty significant. Yeah. Well, many people don't want to talk about difficult topics. They want to stray away from conversations that deal with issues that are hard to talk about, like race, inequality, even inequity with regards to opportunities for employment, living opportunities. So I think that for a long time, folks really closed their eyes to those types of things, those accomplishments, and what this area, what this area bared, and it bared fruit of slavery. It really did. It took a while for folks to understand that that the legacy of Harriet Tubman was not something that you just could push aside. I'm wearing a Harriet Tubman pin that was given to me by my mother when I was a young girl. I'd say I was probably about 12 or 13. And because she was born and raised here on the Eastern Shore. And so I knew about Harriet Tubman as a young girl. And again, I didn't know everything about her, but I knew enough about her to understand that what she did was something that allowed me as an African American woman to accomplish some of the things that I accomplished even at an early age. Even at an early age, as a teenager, there were things that I knew I wanted to do. There were things I knew I wanted to accomplish. I knew an education was important. I knew independence was important. I also knew that no one could take away from me whatever I, learned up here. And that's an example of Harriet Tubman. Even though she was not an educated woman, she still was able to accomplish things based on just her experience growing up, being around her father, learning from her father, learning how to navigate based on the stars. She didn't have a compass. Her compass was the North Star. It was the Big Dipper. She didn't have a cell phone. Her communication was through spirituals. So at this juncture and at this time, 2020, everyone should know of the legacy, not just of Harriet Tubman, but those who came before her and those who came after her, who paved the way for people who look like me and for people who don't look like me to understand the significance of her legacy. Well, I came to the National Park Service in 2005. I worked for a number of other agencies prior to that, but there was something special about the National Park Service. I've been to national parks before becoming an employee in the National Park Service, and there's really nothing like getting that experience, whether it be in a natural setting, a natural park, or in a cultural park, such as the one that we're in right now, the Harriet Tubman Museum in Church Creek, Maryland, or recreational park, or visiting a monument or a statue. But there's something special about the serenity and the opportunity for reflection when you're in the world of conservation, when you're in the world of preservation, because that's what we do. That is our mission in the National Park Service, to protect and preserve these wonderful places that have been protected through legislation, through our Congress, through our presidents. And as an African American in that role, it has been so rewarding. I knew from the start when I came on board with the National Park Service, I knew in the back of my mind, knowing who I am and knowing how I am, that I wanted to achieve a certain level. I wanted to become a superintendent, because I had heard that once you become a superintendent within the National Park Service, you have arrived. Now, that term, "you have arrived," that may mean different things to different people, but let me explain what it means to me. It didn't mean that I'm sitting, on top of the mountain. Yeah, I have an opportunity now to be sitting in a role representing the Park Service, but I'm a public servant as I do it. In other words, having the title of superintendent also comes with the responsibility, and the main responsibility for me is not to toot my horn that I'm a superintendent, but to say that I am in a role and in a position where I need to ensure that I represent myself and the staff as a public servant to people, to touch them, and to make them feel good about, their time in a museum, their time, at a campground, their time in a recreational area, wherever. So, and as an African American woman achieving that level of responsibility is awesome. There are not many of us. There are, of course, African Americans, male and females, who are superintendents. And the Park Service has done a phenomenal job in ensuring that there's opportunity for diversity. But you still wonder. And in my pursuits, I was able to make my way and apply my skills and my knowledge to achieve that superintendency. I don't know. I've always liked nature. I was kind of a tomboy growing up. So I was climbing trees, jumping from trees. I was following my brothers. Wherever they went, I went. I'm from a big family. But before I was born, there were 5 boys. So I was the 6th child to come along. So anytime there needed to be a basketball team or football team set up, 3-3, they always said, "Come on, Deanna, you're coming with us. You're playing." But being outdoors as a child, I think really just kind of stayed with me throughout my life. I love nature. I love animals. I love discovering, and that's what I do here. Sometimes I'll just take a walk along our trails just to take in and reflect on the beauty that's around me, that's around all of us, but it just goes back to being a child and just being outdoors. I never really wanted to be inside, but I had to be inside, when the street lights came on, you had to be inside, but that's my love of nature. I guess for me, never be afraid. Never be afraid to try something that maybe you feel is outside your comfort zone. Because when you narrow yourself and you feel that this is where I need to be and this is where I need to stay, you're only going to be as successful as you can in that element. Why not? Why not take a chance? Why not broaden your horizons? Because that is the only way that you can learn from others. That's the only way that you can, within your heart, understand people that are different from you. Learn new languages. Never hesitate to try a new food. I love Indian food. I love it. Just take a chance. No one is going to judge you. But I think the most important thing that I think youngsters need to know coming up today is you have the opportunity to be and to do anything that you want to do. Period. Do not give up. Never give up. Always go into something, and there are times when I've said, yeah, maybe I'll get this, maybe I won't. I'm just being critical to myself, when I'm saying things like that. But I'm still trying. I'm still going to try. So never feel that you don't have an opportunity, no matter how many roadblocks are in front of you, and never give up. Always try, and you'll be successful. I think we can look at a lot of instances and things within our history. And we can take for granted when we look at a beautiful cathedral, or even if we look at, for instance, Washington, D.C., some of those buildings are magnificent. And most people don't understand that those buildings were built on the back of slaves. Most people don't know that. That's the same here in the east, on the Eastern Shore. So I'll give you an example. So about maybe 5 miles from here is a historical site, and it's called Stewart's Canal. Now, Stewart's Canal is about, I think it's 7 to 9 miles long. And there was a plantation owner. His last name was Stewart. And the community that this canal was built in was called Madison. And Madison was made up of a number, I'd say about 40 to 50 families, African-American families. Some of them were free slaves. Some of them were slaves. And Stewart decided that he wanted to build a canal there in Madison that would allow the timber, because he owned a lot of property, which meant he owned a lot of trees here. So he was a timber harvester, and he had a number of slaves that worked for him. He wanted to find a route that would enable him to get his timber, and not just timber, but other agricultural goods, to the docks in Baltimore. So building that Stewart Canal would allow them to connect for ships to make their way into the Baltimore harbor. That canal was built by slaves and free black men. Now, we're talking about 1930s. We're talking about the 1800s. We didn't have electric plows. This canal was dug by hand, by blacks, by slaves, by free men. And it took them 20 years to build this canal in order for the plantation owner to make his money. That's something that people don't know, the history of the Stewart's Canal. People take it for granted. You can ride by it right now, and you can see as far as the eye can see, of course. But I can't imagine with a shovel and a pick, tools like that, working, that's back-breaking work. And for it to take that long to accomplish it, for the success of trade and commerce, we're talking about trade and commerce, if you will, on the Eastern Shore. Again, I don't think I can count on my hand 5 folks who have visited this site that knew the history behind Stewart's Canal. But that's what you can learn about when you make your way here to the Eastern Shore. I don't know. That's one of those questions where, I'm wondering if I'm trying to get into the minds of others. However, it's very poignant because from my perspective, professionally, and I'm coming to this from my role and my responsibility, it's something I don't stand for. It's something that the agency I work for doesn't stand for. And I'm very proud of that because I think I am in a position to make sure that that doesn't happen because of the color of my skin. The staff that I have right now that I am building, we are very diverse. And that's the way I've always, that's always been my mantra. As an employee, as a supervisor, we cannot just look one way. We need to represent the way the nation looks. So again, professionally, I feel that from my perspective, I can help and contribute to stifling that, but I think we have to embrace who we are. I think history has demonstrated that that's not always been the case for fear. You know, fear of reprisal, whether it be personal or family. Also, just a lack of understanding. I think there are people who don't really understand their own culture. You know, you live it, you wake up every day, you do what you feel you need to do, you go to bed, but there's more to it. You know, we have to understand where we come from. And whatever our purpose is, that's something that we need to find inward. And for me, that's my spiritual piece too. But, you know, it's not easy. It's not easy. We have people who live all over this nation, all over this world, who are trying to understand how they fit. How do we fit into this grand scheme of things? And in some countries, it's so unfortunate because I know I can get up every morning and get my car and go wherever I want to go. And in some countries, people just can't do that. And I don't understand that. Well, you know what? I think if Harriet Tubman were here today, you know, we're talking about someone who was 5 foot. She was only 5 foot tall. But she was like a giant. So I could see why you would think she were a superhero, because I think she was a superhero. But if she were here today and if she witnessed the state of play in our nation and in the world, I think she would just be devastated, because I would think that she would think that all the work that she did through her spirituality, because, you know, she was very quick to say, I'm doing this because this is how God is taking me along this journey. He's with me every step of the way. She was a very spiritual woman. I think she would be so disappointed, because I think she would think all the work that not only she did, but all of her colleagues, all of the abolitionists who helped her, who were not all black, they were white. There were white people, Quakers, that helped with the Underground Railroad. All of that work was for naught, because here we are, you know, she passed away. She died in the early 1900s. So we're talking about 100 years have passed, and we're still kind of chewing at each other. But I think she would just be so disappointed, because I think she would think we're going backwards. It's just colored a little differently. You know, it's not in your face, you know, like it was during her time, but it's behind the scene, but it's still the ugliness there.